Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an all-new ArtsBeat TV and radio, the first of 2024 from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Happy New Year to all of you. We're starting the new year downriver at Goodspeed Musicals, which for 61 seasons has been producing brand new musicals, chestnuts of the musical theater, old relics that needed to be revived, and new works. And some of the new works that started at Goodspeed that have made their way to fame around the world include Annie, Man of La Mancha, Shenandoah, and Irving Berlin's Holiday Inn, which is currently streaming on Broadway HD. With us is Michael Fling, who's the artistic associate at Goodspeed, and their annual New Musicals Festival takes place this weekend, the 12th through the 14th, at Goodspeed. And Michael, first of all, welcome to ArtsBeat.
Hey, thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
I love having you guys on. I love coming down there. It's such a great place to go to the theater on the shores of the Connecticut River or across river at the Terrace Theater. But I did not realize the number of new musicals and new productions that Goodspeed has sent to other theaters over the years.
Yeah, we do a ton of new work development between the Terrace, which is exclusively dedicated to developing new work. But even the history of the Opera House, like you said, like Man of La Mancha premiered at Goodspeed, Annie premiered at Goodspeed almost 50 years ago. So we have a long storied history of doing new musicals at the Opera House as well as the Terrace.
And I just learned the other day that the Dolly Parton musical that was at Chester last summer is going to England and opens this summer out of town of London, but there is a commercial production planned after that for London. So is that the first time a Goodspeed show's gone abroad?
Not the first time it's gone abroad. Because certainly like Man of La Mancha and Annie are huge, like international successes, but it's the first time in a couple of years that something has hopped the pond first before going into New York.
Yeah, and that's got to be exciting for you people to be able to see these shows that you birthed and developed and nurtured along the way have gone on to other things. There was the one musical in New York several years ago, Come From Away, the story of the passengers that were stranded in Newfoundland after 9/11, and that was workshopped at Goodspeed.
Yeah, in our Festival of New Musicals. So a commercial partner that we have in Canada brought the show to us because it needed some more development. And it came across Donna Lynn's desk, who's our artistic director, and she was like, this is amazing. This is incredible. And so it had its first American presentation in life at Goodspeed in our festival. So we're super proud of everything that we put in the festival, and things go on to Broadway and beyond.
So if people come to this Festival of New Musicals this weekend, they'll get an opportunity to see 3 new shows. They're primarily staged readings, correct?
Yes, they're staged readings, yeah. So it's the very first time that a lot of them are being heard in any kind of public setting.
And then there are some seminars and workshops and all of that. And you can find information about that at Goodspeed's website, which is goodspeed.org. But tell me about the 3 shows. One title was familiar to me, and that's The Snow Goose. But the others seem completely new and not adapted from other sources.
Yeah, so The Snow Goose is based on the Paul Gallico novel that I was not familiar with prior to coming to Goodspeed, but it's a beloved novel. Paul Gallico has written a ton of books. Miss Harris Goes to Paris, a lot of things that people know and love, and a really beautiful story about an unlikely friendship that is formed while a kind of outcast from society and a young girl heal an injured snow goose that is really beautiful. It's from our New Works commissioning program, our Good Works program. So we're very, very happy and thrilled that it'll see its first public presentation. But then Photosynthesis, which is a story about a young, an accomplished Black florist in Seattle who has a bit of a mental breakdown as she's trying to navigate being a successful business owner and also the joy of her work and finding the intersection of those things, which the writer, Claudine Notko, came to our Writers Grove, which is our writers retreat that we do every winter last year, And we just fell in love with her and the show and its overall optimism and power and strength. So we're thrilled that it will see its first public presentation at the festival. And then Letters to the President, which is actually based on letters that the American people have written to presidents since the beginning of the nation, and some creative people that we love basically took collected all these letters, cataloged them, did all this stuff, and then took them to like a who's list of some of the best writers in New York, up and coming writers, and said, "Will you write a single song based on one of these letters that inspires you?" And they've taken it and turned it into a full blown musical, which we did a cabaret of last year at the festival, and it was so successful there that we've taken the last year to give them some dedicated development time so they could really make it into a full musical. And so that will premiere in the festival as well.
So you have 3 musicals. How many do people submit their musicals for consideration, or do you solicit them?
Yes, the answer is yes. My joke as kind of our de facto director of new works is it seems like everyone's got a musical. We probably read and go to presentations of anywhere between 100 to 150 new musicals every year. And that just scratches the surface of the things that were submitted. We don't have an official open submission policy, but people find their way through recommendations and friends and whatnot. And the pile on my desk of new musicals is quite high always. So we sit in a very lucky position to be able to have the time to develop and work on these pieces.
So when you're looking at a new musical that's on your desk, are you reading the script, or are you listening to a demo of the score, or are you reading the score?
I primarily read the script and listen to the demo. So I do like a read listen, I call it. I think that's probably what most people call it. But, so when you get to a song in the script, you play the demo, you follow along. So you get as close an experience as what it would be like to see it / experience it as possible. Sometimes demos sort of exist though. So you're reading lyrics. It all kind of depends. Shows come in all states and shapes and forms. The process is not uniform for anyone. So there's a lot of there's a lot of frog kissing, we say. You kiss a lot of frogs, but every great musical was once a new musical, and that is one of our like foundational beliefs and philosophies. That Annie was new, Man of La Mancha was new, Irving Lawrence Holiday Inn was new, Come From Away was new. So everything has to start somewhere.
Yeah, and how much rehearsal time will these 3 shows get before they're performed, and who is in them?
Yeah, so it's a unique process for us because a lot of musicals, when they're developed in New York, go through a 20-hour rehearsal process for a reading, which basically gives everybody the time to learn the music and read the scenes a couple times, and then you do it. It's a very, very quick process. And our festival is unique in that we partner with the University of Hartford, the Hart School at the University of Hartford, and Western Connecticut State University, and we use their junior and senior musical theater majors as the performance pool. And so we actually get 2 full weeks of rehearsal with the company of actors. So shows can not only just learn the music, then read the music and read the scenes and put it all together, but then they can actually develop it and actually make changes, which is one of those things that is so crucial to the development process. But a lot of times you just don't have time when you only have 29 hours. So we have a little bit longer of a process, which makes it very, very successful and productive for the shows.
And the road to Broadway for a musical that's in development could be years in the making. So what happens to these 3 musicals after this festival? Is there feedback given to them? Do they go on? Does Goodspeed have a role in their future development?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, all of those things. So as a part of the festival, the audience is encouraged to give some feedback. We do a little bit of a panel with the writers at the end, so you can meet them and chat with them and ask some questions about the show. I've likened it to the doctor's appointment, basically, that you go in and it's like, okay, well, I'm feeling, how we all think, when we're sick, we Google our symptoms and Dr. Google says you're dying and everything's terrible. And then you go to an actual doctor and they're like, you're not dying. Here's what's happening. So basically, we have a doctor's appointment at the end with the audiences. And I say, okay, like, what are the symptoms you're all experiencing with the show? What are the things you're feeling? Give us your symptoms, and then we'll go away and actually prescribe the medication and what we're going to do to make it better. And sometimes things are great. Sometimes, come from away, everyone leapt out of their chairs and it was like, oh, this is wonderful. There were still things to do, obviously. But yeah, so that is the first step, is that initial feedback. And then some have planned productions. We have agreements with some of the shows in terms of continuing development, like the Snow Goose is our commission. So we will continue to shepherd its development quite intimately. The other shows are a little bit more like, once we're through the festival, if we're interested and they are interested, then we continue forward. But sometimes they have planned productions and whatnot. We had a show last year called Double Helix that was already planned for production at Bay Street in Sag Harbor, and had a massively successful world premiere production last summer. So it all kind of depends on the show. It's a show by show thing.
Yeah, exactly. And we should probably talk a little bit about the 2024 season at Goodspeed. I'm rather excited about two productions. The first one being Drood, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which had been on Broadway before. It's actually been revived on Broadway, but it's being directed by Rob Ruggiero from Hartford's Theater Works, who is quite the director of musical theater at Goodspeed. And the thing I like about that musical, it's based on a Charles Dickens novel that he was writing. He died before he finished the book. And in the musical, there are maybe 5 or 6 possible endings to it, maybe more. And the audience gets to vote on which ending to go after. And it's a mystery who, is done in really kind of fun British music hall tradition. And the second is South Pacific, which is a Rodgers and Hammerstein classic, which had been planned for Goodspeed the summer that the pandemic shut everything down. So for me, of the 4 shows next summer, those 2 have a lot of meaning.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I love our 2024 season. Mystery of Edwin Drood is going to be a hoot and a half. It is the show where you get to pick who done it. So it is like the audience literally votes every performance, and it will change every performance. Who did it? Who did this part of it? All that, and the actors kind of have to roll with it in real time. So it's a real fun experience, all set in like an English music hall type environment. So if you imagine the scores of like Mary Poppins and some of those great like Rum Tum Tum Tum, quite quality things. And Rob is a dear friend of mine and mentor, and also obviously as a storied past at Goodspeed with tons of hit productions. So we're thrilled that he is going to shepherd this production to fruition at the Opera House. And then South Pacific, which is one of my all-time favorite musicals. I love Rodgers and Hammerstein. I love this show. We were supposed to do it in 2020 and have been just trying to get back to it ever since. And we're thrilled that Jay Yu, who is a wonderful, wonderful director out of New York, who just did a very acclaimed production of Light in the Piazza at City Center, has agreed to direct the production, and it has some really, really, really wonderful and exciting things to do with the piece to make it feel as relevant as ever, even though it is one of those pieces that continues to be resonant regardless of when it's done. It's such a beautiful score. Unmatched almost score in the canon.
Yeah, and my understanding was that Goodspeed was already in production with it when the pandemic shut the theater down. The sets and the costumes had been designed, and it had been cast, and it was in preliminary rehearsals at that point. So it's good that all that energy and effort put in can certainly be used 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah, it was. We had to shut down the day before we were starting rehearsal. That was kind of the day that everything shut down, was the day before we were starting rehearsal. So set was built, costumes were in the shop, things were happening. And we even had an actor, Loretta Ablasayer, who was originally going to be Bloody Mary. She's not going to be doing it this summer. But she was like in transit to be with us from Hawaii and landed at BDL, and we basically like had her on campus for a day and then had to be like, we have to send you home. We don't know how long this is going to be. And that was, everyone's March of 2020. So we're thrilled that it's finally going to be on our stages. Every single time I'm in the Opera House with audiences, everyone has been saying, when are you all going to do South Pacific? When's South Pacific happening? When's South Pacific happening? And it's wonderful to be able to say, summer of 2024, we will be doing South Pacific.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And what are the other two shows that complete the 2024 on the main stage?
So, in keeping with our Festival of New Musicals and the success from Come From Away that we had a number of years ago in the festival, the creative producer who brought us Come From Away has brought us another show called Maggie, which is a brand new musical inspired by the true story of a Scottish mother's unbreakable love for her sons, and written by a truly wonderful Canadian songwriter who is world famous, not as famous in America, but the music is on Spotify of the musical, and it's absolutely breathtaking. So we're really very, very excited to be doing the American premiere of what is sure to be the next hit musical. And then A Christmas Story, which is a musical that I love and have been wanting us to do for a long time. It's obviously the musical adaptation of the beloved movie. And I'm not even a huge fan of the movie, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I absolutely love the musical adaptation. It has such good music and is such a warm hug at Christmas. And having just been like with my family for the holidays, I want nothing more than to bring them all to Connecticut to see Christmas Story, because it is a tap dancing, spectacular, nostalgic, old-fashioned musical about the warmth of Christmas, and it'll be an absolute delight. So we're really, really excited about the 2024 season.
So again, you can get information and buy tickets for both the festival and for the subscriptions for the main season at Goodspeed at their website, goodspeed.org. And there will be musicals at the Terrace Theater this summer, but those are going to be announced later this year, right?
They're going to be announced at the festival, actually. So if you get a package for the festival, you will be the first to know what the three exciting shows that we have premiering at the Terrace, three world premieres, in fact, that are quite varied and quite exciting. One title that I know most people will know and will be very excited by the writing team that is composing it. Another that has a creative team that Connecticut audiences know very well and we're really, really, really excited by. And the other is a breathtaking story of strength and endurance that I think will really resonate with folks. So get tickets to the festival and you'll be the first to know what's happening at the Terrace.
That sounds good to me. How long have you been at Goodspeed?
So I've been here for just over 4 years. And it has been a wild 4 years, but it's a wonderful place to be. And it's a really Goodspeed is a very special place. Like you said, it's unparalleled in terms of what it's like to cross that bridge and go see a show at the Opera House or at the Terrace. It's a really, really special place. And even when the days can be a little crazy, it's nice to be able to go out and look at the swing bridge and stand on the dock and be like, well, if nothing else, I work at a really beautiful place.
It is a beautiful place. And I had an opportunity to cover a show once. And I took a friend of mine who was a pilot, and we flew to the little airport at Goodspeed and walked along the riverfront. It's just a gorgeous place, whether there's a show or not.
It really, really is.
But better when there's a show. And what was the first musical or play that made you say to yourself, I've got to do musical theater?
I saw Peter Pan. With Kathy Rigby. I mean, I always grew up, watching musical movies and stuff. But when I saw Peter Pan, I as a young redhead and all the things, I was like, well, that's who I want to be. So Peter Pan was really what bit the bug for me.
Okay. Well, I thank you for joining us this morning on ArtsBeat, and I hope everybody gets to Goodspeed this year. If not for the Festival of New Musicals, then for one of the main stage productions in the Opera House, which is on the Connecticut River, or the new musicals to be announced across the river at the Terrace Theater in Chester. And all of that information is available at goodspeed.org. Michael, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, and to everybody listening. There's something for everybody, so we'll see you at the theater.
Great. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more ArtsBeat. Ken Stompsky is our chief engineer this morning. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Rocky's Ace Hardware. For all your fall cleanup needs, plus you'll experience our legendary helpful service in every department. Rocky's, rock solid service since 1926.
Underwriting for community radio is provided by the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Every day the YMCA strengthens the community through programs and services focused on youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. For all the Y's many programs and services, visit us on the web at www.westfieldymca.org. The YMCA, 67 Court Street in downtown Westfield. We're more than a gym. We're a cause.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldState.bncollege.com.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to ArtsBeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Ken Stomsky is our chief engineer today. And this segment of ArtsBeat I've been looking forward to for months and months. I'm proud to have Maestro Kevin Rhodes back in town, so to speak, to chat with us. As many of you know, he was the music director of the Springfield Symphony for 20 years. His contract was not renewed during the pandemic when the orchestra shut down, but it really didn't make a difference to him in terms of he's conducting all over the world, Slovenia, Slovakia, Oslo, Rome, opera houses, concert halls, ballet theaters all over the place. He's the music director of the Traverse Symphony in Michigan and the Boston Pro Arts Chamber Orchestra in Boston, and he's a musical advisor to the Springfield Chamber Players, formerly known as MOSO. Kevin, it's always good to see you.
Hey, Mark, it's great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy New Year. I thought about you the other day, and I went to see the movie Maestro about Leonard Bernstein, which is quite the movie. And I wondered if you had seen it, and if Bradley Cooper comes to you and says, let's do the movie version of Maestro about Kevin Rhodes, who you would like to play you in the movie, and who would play your wife, Jane?
Okay, well, first of all, I have not seen the film. Second of all, I can't imagine anything more horrifying than someone thinking they should make a movie about my life. So I can't even go there. But if someone were to play me, they'd have to be somebody who how should I say it? Struggles. Struggles with weight, struggles with music. Yeah.
Well, I know that if they're going to do it, I've already cast myself in your movie, and Nathan Lane will play me. Okay. Very good. So a lot of people know that you were in the 20 years you were in Springfield. You lived in Westfield. People knew you not only as the maestro of the Springfield Symphony, but people would say, "Oh, I saw Kevin at such and such a restaurant, or I saw Kevin and his wife at this store or that store," and things like that. So you're a very familiar face and voice to a lot of people in Westfield. What have you done and been working on since you left Springfield?
Oh my gosh. Well, let's see. I mean, well, out here with my orchestra in Michigan, which the Traverse Symphony Orchestra, which I was always doing concurrently with Springfield. I started both of those positions in 2001, right around the time of 9/11, actually, to be very exact. I was out here that week doing a concert. In any event, so we here are we are starting a community music school that is going to be under the umbrella of the orchestra, run by us, the orchestra, and we have taken a several decade lease on this will sound funny, but I think it's really cool. On half of an old Kmart that was just unused in this mall. And so we are repurposing that huge space for our offices, for teaching studios, for an enormous rehearsal space designed by great acousticians that will be sort of our at least our logistical home, not our concert home because it's not large enough for that, but we will be actually able to have small recitals in the rehearsal room because I think it is being rated to hold like 250 people. So so we'll be able to have like chamber music and whatever in there. So getting that project going, as well as the regular work of the orchestra here, has been very busy. Oh, and we also started a jazz orchestra here, also under our umbrella, and a chamber music series. So we've been doing lots of different projects here, in addition to the main orchestra concerts. Overseas, it started during the pandemic, but I began a relationship with the Rome Opera, which has been really nice, and it brings me back working with, again, somebody who I worked with when they were on stage, but has now moved into administration and directing in that way. And so now I've done three productions there in Rome, and have another one later in 2024. Been very busy at La Scala, I guess, since the pandemic started or whatever. I guess I've probably done 6 things there. Have another one coming up this year. This season, I go to Munich, to the Bavarian State Opera for the first time, and keeping up my and another one that was new. In Slovenia at the Slovenian National Opera in Ljubljana. I'm doing a lot there these years. Earlier this year, I did Rite of Spring and Bolero, as well as a revival of Giselle, and then we'll do La Boheme in March and April. So anyway, so just happily, I can say, what have I been up to? More of the same.
But a lot more of it in Europe than here.
Yes. I mean, but, I was, it was something that, not a lot of folks were always so aware of, particularly before social media really became the thing I didn't join social media myself till about 2010 or 2011, is that from the moment that I came back to the States in 2001, I was still going back to Europe, sometimes as much as 8 months out of the season. And I can remember so many times being in the middle of a long production in Paris and having organized the schedule so that I would have 4 days free, coming back to Springfield, rehearsing, doing a performance with the orchestra there, and then heading back over to Paris to pick up what I was doing there. And so that's happily, that's been has remained a part of my life since because I thought when we moved back to America, I thought, that's probably going to be more or less the end of working in Europe, and that's turned out not to be the case. And happily, next year it's soon 24. Oh my gosh, what a year. So 23 years later, that's still the case. So that's something to be quite happy about and celebrate. On my list of things I'm thankful for this New Year's Eve.
Do you have a place to live in Europe, or do you live in hotels when you're there?
I usually am living in apartments, either apartments provided by the various theaters, or when they pay you enough, they just go, okay, solve your living a situation yourself. And believe me, that's something that has become so much easier since vacation rental by owner, Airbnb, all of these different kind of sites for short-term rentals. Because I remember back in the early days, if I was looking for an apartment, for an extended stay someplace instead of a hotel, I used to have to get. Do you remember? Well, I suppose they probably still have them. Those Lonely Earth guides to
Yeah,
different cities.
yeah, they still have those.
Right, right. So, I mean, so you would try to get the newest copy you could at the bookstore, and then be looking, in some index for somebody that may have, submitted their information for short-term rentals to the Lonely Earth book, and hope you could find somebody that had a place. So, and as a matter of fact, it's funny you asked me about that, because just right now today, I'm sorting out some information to get a proper work visa for a certain period of time in a certain country, and I have to provide where I'm going to be living during that time. So that's a very topical question.
So, with all the work that you're doing, and then you have to arrange for your accommodations, your airfare, the paperwork that's involved and stuff, do you have management or do you have to do it yourself?
Well, most of this stuff, yes, I have management, and yes, I have to do most of this myself. The management is maybe, they're wonderful and helping with contract and all of this sort of stuff. But pretty much your life you got to sort out on your own, and that's. I always thought if I taught, and I've never taught as a regular part of what I do, but if I was teaching like a university class on conducting or something, I would definitely have a part of it that is if you're really lucky and you have these problems to deal with, here's the problems you got to deal with that are not F sharps and B flats. And another thing, sometimes the schedule is so touchy that you really want to make sure that it's being done correctly. So yeah, no, I'm the one managing all of that piece of it myself.
Going back to the music that you're doing, when you're going to an opera house to do an opera or a ballet, are these scores that you know, or do you have to learn the scores from scratch?
Well, it's of course a combination. I mean, it's rare that I have a score that I have no relationship to whatsoever, but then sometimes, you'll be doing a piece that maybe you've not done in 10 years, maybe you've not done it in 20 years. And certainly I have some of those always, right? Like the Rite of Spring that I played in the fall. I don't think I'd done Rite of Spring for maybe 10 years or something. So, that's a lot of work to relearn that appropriately. And but then other pieces like one of the ballets that I'll be doing in Munich and in Milan and in Madrid on tour with Munich company. That one I was doing last year, but each production is a very different one in terms of what music is used and how it goes, and when this speed and that speed and this choreography, that choreography. So there's always something new. And there's just as a real practical matter for anybody who's studied music and played music there, we can appreciate this. Every time I'm doing it at a different place, I literally have physically a different piece of music, a different score to the piece, arranged how that opera house does that piece or how that production goes. So it's never like I can take my music and go put it on the stand and play it. If I'm doing a Brahms or Beethoven symphony, or sure, that's fine. But for these theater productions, I'm always having to take what's there. Now, an opera, that's a different story. Usually, but not always, that those are more or less standard. So there's, a big, thick, heavy score of Bohème sitting over there, and that's going to be the same no matter where you do it. So
several years ago, you did a new production of Sylvia by Delibes. Was that a score you were familiar with, or was that something you had to start from scratch?
No, that was one I didn't know at all. I learned after learning the piece, that there were two pieces of it that I actually did know because they had come up in sort of gala and highlights evenings. But no, I didn't know a note of the score. Well, almost I didn't know a note of the score at when I was first doing it. Yeah, a beautiful, beautiful piece. It's a real shame that it's not more known because it's really fabulous music. But yeah, I did that in Vienna, and then we did the production again in Milan, and next season we'll do that production in Paris. So I'm becoming the Sylvia expert.
And every time you do a new production with a new ballet company, is it with the same choreography or is it different choreography?
Oh, it's oftentimes usually different choreography. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Some productions that have become staples of the repertoire within themselves, like Nureyev's Swan Lake or Nureyev's Nutcracker or Don Quixote or Bayadere. Sometimes a theater will. Yes, we're doing Nureyev's Don Quixote. So then that will be exactly the same, just like if you went to see Phantom of the Opera in New York or you went to see it in Toronto. It'll be absolutely the same down to the last line on someone's forehead to make them look old.
And I would assume that you adjust the cadences and timing to the dancers that are performing because some dancers take it fast, some take it slow.
Yeah, well, you're always trying to put them in their best light, and and dance isn't governed by the same properties that music is. So if you say, okay, I'm going to do Madame Butterfly, and we're going to do this so that lady singing Madame Butterfly always sounds great. There are just sort of built-in borders, if you will, around the way a human voice will work with a piece of music. And differences, of course, but it exists within a certain realm. When it comes to dance, then it is not dealing with something like breath or how fast you can sing fast notes or how long you can hold long notes. It is with things which are much more individual, like how fast someone can go up in the air, twirl 3 times and come back down. There are very different speeds at which people can do that and do it successfully. Just to name something really simple to try to describe. So the matter of tailoring how I play the music for the production with dancers is actually much more specific to that particular person dancing than maybe with opera in a way.
Okay. A question that somebody asked me to ask you. What do you miss the most about Western Massachusetts?
Oh my gosh. What do I miss the most?
Not who, but what?
Not who.
Well, you can if you want. If there's a who, sure.
Well, there's a whole group of who's, and that's the musicians of the Springfield Symphony that really became much more than friends and colleagues over 20 years. And so they're in terms of things I miss, they're always at the top of the list. No, that was our home for 20 years, my wife Jane and I. And so many of the, we like to eat. So many of the great restaurants there in the area, and it's every place has quote unquote the way people are. And we immediately felt at home in Western Mass in terms of how the people are. And we miss that very much. We now live in the Midwest. Again, I have to say, because we're both from the Midwest originally, my wife from Michigan, me from Indiana. So everything about the Midwest is super comfortable and familiar, and we know that. But we just really kind of miss the way, if you will, of the New Englanders, and that was always great fun to live with. And when I get comments from friends from there on social media, it's always a great joy to get that little that energy, if you will. Then I suppose if I would say a thing, one more thing, and maybe, I didn't get your questions in advance, so I didn't have a chance to prepare. But if there was another thing, then it would for sure have to be Symphony Hall in Springfield, because the building is just so one of a kind and so magnificent and so incredible to play acoustic music in. That's always going to be something I miss very much.
Now that you're a globetrotter, or you were while you were in Springfield, but now that you're on the road all the time, is there a city that you have fallen in love with that you didn't expect to?
Well, certainly two of the places that I am a lot right now these days are really nice to just be in. And that's Oslo and Ljubljana. Oslo in Norway, of course, and Ljubljana in Slovenia. And they're just really easy cities to exist in. The folks are very, very friendly. And, and those weren't two places that were necessarily on my radar as, oh my gosh, that's someplace I absolutely want to go. And that's been a real treat. Rome, which I had heard so much about, and not always in the most positive of ways, other than the incredible historical architecture and antiquities there. Rome has also turned out to be a real delight, but just in the way of just being there. I really kind of it's a little bit rough and tumble in a way. And I don't mean rough and tumble as if like, bad things are going to happen to you. It's just not as orderly, let's say, as Northern Italy, Milan, which is the Italian city I know the best. And because what they tell me is that in terms of how it is, Milan definitely is much more oriented towards the north. Historical reasons for that make complete sense, towards the Austro-Hungarian Empire, while Rome absolutely oriented towards the south, which I suppose also makes sense in a way. Rome, Oslo, and Ljubljana, I would say, have been my real big, delightful surprises in the past few years.
And I know that you're a foodie and that you like really good food and interesting things.
Oh, yes.
Have you discovered any new great foods while you've been abroad?
Well, I don't know. It sounds kind of bad to say at this time of year, but reindeer can be mighty tasty.
As long as it doesn't have a red nose, I guess.
No, I mean, that's one of those things, right? Because the Norwegians, I mean, they do lots of dishes with reindeer, particularly if you're there in the cold part of the year, which I oftentimes am. So that's a bit of a surprise. I mean, of course, all the great Italian food, there's no surprises there. But I would say the reindeer dishes of Norway have been my biggest surprise in terms of food. Yes.
And when you get a vacation, or time extended time off, which you get maybe once or twice a year, Is there what do you do? Do you go to other people's concerts and ballets and operas, or do you totally check out from music?
Well, if I have the time off, then that generally means I'm not in a place. If I'm at home here in Michigan, where I'm speaking to you from today, and there's something going on, which there is always something. This is an incredibly active arts community here that is particularly of interest. Of course, I will go see that. But no, I think time off for me is really very much sort of shutting myself away, or shutting ourselves away, Jane and I, with friends and family, since that is something that's completely denied us by definition when I'm working, right? Either I'm away or we're away, and there's just no times to do that. So friends and family are really how most of the time is spent, plus just a lot of being quiet, because what I do is kind of it's kind of a loud thing sometimes. And it certainly involves many people, if you think at an average, symphony concerts involve the fewest people. Maybe between the orchestra and everybody who's working backstage, maybe you have 80 people, something like this. If you're doing a big production in an opera house, then you have, oh my gosh, a minimum of like 160 people just to make the curtain go up, right? A minimum, right? And then there's all of the people who work in the support areas as well. So it's not long before you get close to 200. So that's a very active environment to be really in the middle of. So when I am away from work, then it's mostly about being quiet and calm in order to psych up for the next bit, and studying and preparing. And speaking of preparing, I'm doing a recital, piano recital here at the end of January as a benefit for the orchestra here, our big winter fundraiser. And so right now I'm at my piano doing some slow practice of some Mozart, Chopin, and Brahms, which is another great passion of mine that I don't get to do too much, that being play the piano.
I know that you're very active on social media. How can people listening today follow along with you on social media?
Well, for sure. I mean, the two main platforms that I'm using are Instagram and Facebook. I never was really into Twitter, and now it's called X, and so on Facebook, there's just simply Kevin Rhodes. There's also Kevin Rhodes Conductor. They're one and the same, basically. And I have to probably put more with Kevin Rhodes than Kevin Rhodes Conductor. And then Kevin Rhodes Conductor is also my handle. Do we use handle? That sounds like that's like CB days,
it
right?
Sounds like we're truckers.
Breaker 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10-4.
That's my part of the country I'm from. Yeah. We're in a convoy. That took you back, didn't it? That's Kevin Rhodes Conductor on Instagram. That's what I do. But you'll note most of that stuff I'm writing about is just about things I'm doing. Almost never is there a picture of my dinner.
That's true. I mean, I follow you fervently on both, and I post more food things than you do.
Right. Well, that's kind of my wall, because my work is so public, and social media is just by definition public. So I kind of keep that all on that side of the orange cones, and just only the occasional party will there be a picture of, and usually someone else has posted it, me shaking martinis or something.
Exactly.
Something I might have been doing on Christmas Day or the Christmas the day after.
Kevin Rhodes, thank you so much for being here. It is always a pleasure to get a chance to chat with you.
Likewise. And it's great to hear your voice. Great to see you here in the little box on my iPad. And big love and hugs to everybody in Western Mass, Pioneer Valley. I miss everyone so very, very much. But forever in my heart. That's for sure.
Well, we hope that we get to see you live in person soon, and that's one of my wishes for the new year. But Kevin,
I would love that.
Thanks.
I would love to see all of y'all.
Thanks again. And this wraps up another edition of ArtsBeat. Ken Stomsky's been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next Friday with an all-new edition of ArtsBeat.